What's up, baby?
Turkey killing mofos. Hey, you a professional now.
You got her? Heck yeah, man. That's awesome, dude. Hell yeah.
Storytelling in regards to hunting and fishing has gone back hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
Literally on the rock walls of our nation.
Push it.
Yes, sir.
What are you doing, Brandon?
Go. By the way, your nipples are already wet.
I just shot probably one of the most epic scenes, like, probably ever. These two monster bugs got after it, and it was so cool.
That's about like what you want it to look like. Cover it.
Oh, he's so handsome.
That's a big deer, Megs.
He's big. He's a big boy. That's talking whitetail.
That's what I'm talking about, baby.
Holy crap.
Look at those hooves.
Everybody wants to be a turkey hunter until it's time to do turkey hunter
Hey, Calvin, how's it going?
Hey.
Can you hear me good?
Hey, how you doing, sir?
Doing good, and you?
Yes, sir.
Doing good.
Yeah, good, real good. You like the backdrop? We like how we set it up for you?
I like it, man. I like it. It's always it's funny doing podcasts and stuff, especially here. Like having a studio would be awesome. Like there's some podcasts I listen to and I just look at and I'm like, man, it'd be so cool to have a setup like that with all the different cameras and everything. And then, but like here, I have a wall, a table, and then like over here is storage. So it's funny when different people come up with different ideas, especially when you don't do it all the time and you're like trying to move stuff around and like make it look good and all that. And I appreciate it. I really do.
Well, we actually have the dining room tables behind me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's actually, we're in the dining room right now. There's some mounted fish on the wall and ducks and stuff like that around me, but the kitchen's like right there.
Yeah. When we started the podcast when we lived in College Station, we did it at our dining room table, and we just had a wall and then just used it as the backdrop. And like I said, on the other side was the kitchen and stove and everything else.
Yeah, I did one with Andrew Spinetti with Laguna Podcast. Have you heard of them?
Okay. I think so.
He came here to the house and we just did it in my studio. And so that was kind of funny because like all this stuff like everywhere, it's like we just made the best of it. So this is my wife and my son set this up, so it looks a little more more professional, I guess. Decided to wear some hunting gear, so I looked like I was actually supposed to be on the show and not just, posing.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not posing.
I've been turkey hunting a little bit, so this kind of goes with the flow. So
well, I'm jealous. I haven't gotten to get out this year yet. We're going Easter weekend, so we're gonna go hunt that weekend. Me and a buddy on a ranch we've hunted before, so hopefully we'll have some luck then. But yeah, I've been kind of jealous of all the birds I've been seeing that everybody's been getting and stuff.
Yeah,
but it's another turkey season.
I got 2 on opening day.
Awesome.
One in the morning and one in the evening. And that's the first time I ever got turkey hunt. Well, not the first time, I'm sorry. Not the first time I ever took it. First time I ever got to kill anything on turkey hunt. It was about my 3rd time to ever actually get to go.
Yeah.
We went last year, and I went one weekend last year with a buddy of mine, and we just got so skunked. Like, it was, you had to really be wanting to hunt to sit there and listen to the crickets for 4 or 5 hours in the blind.
Yep. I've been there.
The last part of the day, on that Sunday, I got impatient. And he's like, I had to drive all the way back home because I live in Bridge City. I don't live down where we were around Goliad and Refugio, around, Refugio County area.
Yeah.
And so it's a bit of a drive. And so I was sitting there talking to him. And I'm like, all right, we gotta probably get going. I need to get back home. I got to work tomorrow again. I mean, I got to work. Yeah, Monday. I was like,
yeah.
So he's like, I'm just throwing in the towel. So I step out of the blind, take my mask off and my hat, and I walk out. And I look to the left, and there's a gobbler standing right there in the sendero, and I'm like, "You got to be kidding me!" And the ranger's coming from the other direction behind him, so he's like pinned in, and he's looking at all of us like, "Oh no, I don't want no part of this." So he dashes off, and it was like, "Ah!" And my guy that was with, he goes, "That's turkey hunting for you. Just when you think it's going to be over, they show up."
Yeah. I've seen there's a video of a guy like I've seen on social. He's like walking down a road and he's gobbling and or he's calling, and then like he stops and he waits for a little bit and he just turns around and starts walking out, and then he gets about 5 steps down. Gobbler walks out behind him, sees
Oh,
him, goes across the road, and then he like, you know how you do when you're walking off, you're like, let me look one more time. And he looks back, nothing, because the gobbler had already gotten across the road. But yeah, it's just like that. It happens all the time. But it's cool
yeah.
that you were down in that area. I grew up in Goliad, so I used to run around
Oh,
there
okay,
like,
cool.
yeah. I grew up
I
in
like that
Goliad.
area. It's a really pretty area, and I like the missions and stuff in the
Yes,
town,
sir.
and the
Yep.
people have been real friendly there when I go there. And
Well,
we
good.
haven't got to spend a lot of time there because we're kind of out, like not right there, we're out further out, but like in that area is where I always kind of refer it to because we took my family and I like to go down to Laguna Madre at least once a year and try to fish
Mm-hmm.
or hunt or so. Well, fish, not hunt. And we always come through there and we kind of make that a stopping area around in there because we always try to go to the mission and walk around, let the kids see
Well, that's
it. And
awesome.
I always like to photograph it and think about doing some paintings, like some Western paintings with it eventually someday.
Yeah.
I just haven't been able to get. Well, I just never get time. We have 6 kids. I think I don't know if you know that.
No, I did not know that.
We have a 14-year-old son, a 13-year-old son, 12-year-old daughter, 9-year-old daughter, and a 6-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. So yeah,
Y'all are busy. Yeah, real busy.
yeah.
And
I work.
And here I
A
am
full-time
fresh
teaching
off.
job.
And here I am fresh. Megan and I, we just had our first son. He's a little over a month old right now. And I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, we're on different opposite ends of the spectrum, but on the same one. That's wow. Yeah.
So you're still in the, oh, he's so sweet and loving. I just want to hug him all day and cuddle him and stuff.
Yeah.
You haven't got to the, oh my gosh, he'll never let me sleep.
He's luckily he's been pretty good. This is my second week of going back to work, back into the office. But he's had a little gas, of course, as they always do, that kind of stuff. And then, but the last couple nights, he slept till 5:30. And then he slept till 6:30. Of course, he went to sleep at 12:30.
So he's still training y'all.
Yeah.
He's getting ready to bust y'all soon. You're gonna all of a sudden have these like weird spurts of like every 3 hours they're up or 4 hours.
Oh yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
And that's like you're just going, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. And you're dragging tail everywhere you go.
Yeah.
And then your wife's gonna look at you and it's just gonna like kill you some days probably. So
it's gonna happen, but no.
But I tell you what, here's the coolest thing about that you're going to look forward to, and this is something I tell people: you can't put money on this. The first time they catch their fish, you're going to be like proudest dad in the world. First time they hunt and get something, you're going to be proudest dad. Like all that stuff, you can't buy that experience. It's just there's something treasure about your son or your daughter getting that first experience outdoors with you. Like, I still remember my dad the first time I shot my first duck with him, I think he was more excited than I was. And when I shot my first turkey the other day, the guy that was with me has been like a dad to me for years. He was my gallery dealer a long time ago. And so he told the guy later, he goes, I think I was more excited than he was. And I said, well, no, I was pretty pumped, but he was just so ecstatic. He was like, oh my God, I'm so glad you finally got one. Because last year he was heartbroken that we worked so hard last year and just scored 0, And he got one last year after I didn't get one. He went the next weekend and got one. So
we've been on places too like that. Like me and my buddy Jared, who, like I said, I'm gonna go hunt with on Easter. He's like, we've been on places where we've hunted for turkeys, and this same ranch we're going back to. We've hunted and hunted and hunted. We've seen them and tried to get them, and then Leo, the guy that manages the ranch there, he'll text us the next week and just send us a video of him in his truck, and he's going off checking stuff in the ranch, and they're just walking right there by the truck, and then he'll do a little honk, and then they'll just gobble right there. And it's like, yeah, we couldn't have bought that when we were there last weekend.
Yeah, it's funny we're talking about the behind you thing. This past weekend we were there, that Sunday, we were just having a real rough morning again. Couldn't get anything to work for us. And so I told him, I said, let's go down to this one area in the back that no one really ever hunts. And because the guy who runs the place told us they're back there. So let's go check it out. And we didn't want to go back there this at the beginning of the weekend because it was so much rain. It was just too wet.
Yeah.
But it dried out a lot by Sunday where we could get back there. And we got to this. It was a 4-way crossing Sendero, like there's 4 ways, and we just kind of pulled the Ranger off there. And I said, just do a little call and see if anything gobbles back at you. Let us know if there anybody around here.
Yeah.
So he called, and he was tired and ready to go because he wanted to watch the U of H game. He was ready to get home. And he called again, and I'm standing there, kind of at the edge of the Senderos, like looking back and forth. I'm looking the one behind me, looking forward. And he calls a couple more times, and just as he goes, Calvin, he goes, let's just go ahead and go. I look to the right, and there's a turkey just stepped out, staring right at me. And I said, kind of just slid back, and I go, there's one right down that Sendero. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And so I'm still new to this, so I'm thinking kind of like, I'm gonna slide down this Sendero a little bit, which I don't know. I weigh too much these days to slide it anywhere unless I'm in a pool. And so I kind of, cruise down through the brush a little bit. I'm getting down there a little closer, and you know how all the thorn brush is everywhere, and I'm kind of dodging and weaving in it. And finally, I found a little cutout in the brush, and I just kind of get in there and I go, okay, if he comes down that Sendero, he's gonna be right in my way. And I'm sitting there for a little bit, and they're calling still a little bit, and then all of a sudden I hear this like flying. And I look, and 2 turkeys just fly right over the top of me. They just came out of the Sendero, and I'm like, where did they come from? They had the one I saw when they went around behind me through the woods and came out between me and the Ranger. And so they were just right dead by, like he said, they couldn't have came out no more like 10 yards from me. Because when I turned around, they were right there in my face.
Yeah.
And he's like, you should just stay in the Ranger. He goes, they came right here to us. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me I'm new at this turkey hunting thing? Like, why are you letting me do all this crazy stuff when you could just cut the chase? And he goes, I enjoy watching you struggle a little bit with this whole thing. And I'm like, so then he proceeds to tell me on the way, he goes, one time I was hunting at a ranch, he goes, I called up a turkey for a guy. He was sitting in the front of the Jeep, and he was wearing jeans and a white T-shirt. We called him right up to the Jeep, and he shot him. I was like, well, that's not very sporting.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, it's like turkeys are the dumbest, smartest animals you'll probably ever hunt.
Yes.
And some of the stuff they do, it's like, oh yeah, that turkey's so smart. He figured us out. It's like, I honestly, I just think he lucked out. It's not that they're that smart. They're just dumb enough to not do what they're supposed to do.
It's like they I don't know. It's like they have time lapses in their brain where some weeks they're off and some weeks they're on. Because when he hunted the day before, we hadn't seen anything that morning again. We go back to camp, and me and another buddy, we leave to go run some errands, and we're riding around, and he stayed there. And so he said, well, I decided to step outside on the patio area and just play with my call for a little bit. Next thing I look up, and there's 3 toms like 12 yards from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. And he goes, then 3 more jakes. Well, they see me and they run off. And he goes, so I go down the brush kind of where they went, and I start calling again. Sure enough, here they come. I shoot the lead one, and the other 2 are standing there looking at the dead one.
Yeah.
He goes, I could have shot another one. This guy has over like 100 beards on his wall. So it's kind of like, he's shot like Merriam's, Ocialos. Like all of, I think the only one he may not have shot is the Goulds. And he's like, he was making me laugh because he's like, I just sitting there playing around in my call, but I'm just so good. I can call him right up to the porch. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh man. Turkey hunters are a different breed, man. And when you get those guys that have done things like you said, like got 100 beers on his walls, traveled to hunt turkeys, they are a different kind of person. I like being around them, especially during turkey season, right?
Oh yeah.
But like, it's just some of the stories and some of the things that they'll tell you that they've experienced chasing those turkeys. Those are better stories most of the time than like, oh yeah, we walked into this ranch or the public land or whatever, and we killed this bird. But it's like, on the way there, we did this, and on the way there, we saw this, and we got food at this some little restaurant and those kind of things. It's real cool to hear all those stories.
Yeah, I told him, I said, we really should go up and down the Texas coast and all west, south, everywhere, and just gather stories from all different people that have hunted and fished over the years, and then put a book together and like illustrate it with artwork to some of the stories. So it would be really kind of a cool experience to have a book with, like, because some of the stories I've heard are just like, and I think people tend to want to share them with me and I don't know, because like you doing the podcast and you being in this kind of business, like people kind of want to share stuff. It seems like with us more like being art and stuff, because they want to see, like, I think if because people always ask me like, well, what kind of stories have you heard? What do you got? Yeah. It's like we're trading baseball cards or something. People want to know, what do you have so and so?
I've never heard it put like that, but that is exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's
That
like
is exactly what it is.
I'll put down my Mark McGuire. Do you have a Nolan Ryan? And it's
Yeah.
like they're flipping back and forth, and you're like, that's kind of what it's like, And then the older guys are always like coming with a full house or a bunch of aces, They're like,
Yeah.
Here's my story, blah blah blah. I got this one. I got you all topped.
Yeah.
And it cracks me up because like when I hunt with him, he's one of those kind of guys. Like he's been hunting turkey since the 1960s. So he's got stories from Wyoming. He's got some crazy stories about some of the dumbest stuff these turkeys have done and some of the smartest stuff. Like we had, I don't know if you've ever used Avian X decoys, and I'm not trying to trash Avian X, but someone told us to put out a Jake decoy.
Yeah.
And we were kind of hesitant because we usually only just use a hen. And we decided to put the Jake decoy out, and man, the two toms that came in close, as soon as they got a little bit closer, they saw that decoy. And it was an evening hunt, so maybe they would have been a little different with the way they experienced in the morning. But we had a Jake and a hen, and they just went right back in the woods.
Yep.
And they came around behind us, gobbled like 10 yards behind the blind, but we were in a little pop-up blind. We didn't have it open. We could see them really. And we figured they were just going to hook a right and come around us on the right side. But nope, they just went back down a different sendero back behind us, and that was the end of it.
Yeah,
sort of like, okay.
I've used those avian decoys, and I've used them one day, and we've killed birds over them. Bring them out again, we're going out again the next day, and they see them, and they're just like, "We're out of here." Like it just doesn't.
Yeah,
jive.
I think it just depends. And like he and I were talking about something that I think maybe be a factor. Different areas, different bird mentality.
Yeah,
because I've hunted in different places with duck decoys and seen ducks that decoy but differently with different decoys than other places.
Yeah,
or the way they act, is like, oh, okay, well, I'm not, but especially with the turkeys, I think like, we live in this area, we have a different way of like, they're just more skittish maybe, or they're more easygoing, or they're more fighting. I don't know. Like it just depends, but the hen decoy works good. It's just the Jake one that we put in there that they were just
the Jake one, and then I have a Tom decoy because I bought it as a set and it was on sale. Yeah. But I've never pulled out that Tom decoy to use that one because to me in my mind the birds really have to be like fired up. Like the gobblers have to be aggressive, ready to fight. They want to there's scarcity. Like I think if you're hunting a place or a property that has a lot of hens and they have a lot of choices to go with, they're not going to be as willing to fight. If they got water and food and all that kind of stuff, they're not really wanting to fight. But if you get to where there's only like one hen and there's 7 toms around, they're probably trying to, push their weight around.
I think that's exactly what it is. Because like the second one I shot that evening, there was 12 hens he was with by himself. I mean, he's got no real reason. I mean, he didn't even come into the decoy. They just came in and he just came with them is what pretty much it was. The girls got him in trouble. Yep. And the one that morning I killed, he was with two hens by himself. So I'm pretty sure he was the same thing. And he was real skittish at first. He was kind of like, I don't know about this, but the girls kept on coming and he's just kind of like, I should fix this video thing. Is it back on? Yeah, there we go. There we go. So he got real skittish, like turned his back to me like he was fixing to go back into the woods. And I was like, I'm just going to wait him out. And sure enough, he turned around because the girls kept going. He was like, oh, all right, I'm going to go catch up with my girls. And that's where I got him. But
my buddy Tim, who I've hunted with like the most, like I got baptized in turkey hunting with him.
Yeah.
But he told me when we were hunting, he was like, man, you got to think of this as like a bar. Like the turkeys, this is at a bar. Like if you see that turkey, like you just said, and he's got all the girls, like you can't really like entice him to get like to come off. Like if you got 7 girls over here, I'm not coming over here for this one.
Right.
And then, like he's always talked about like if you can get that boss hen to come towards you, he's gonna follow the rest of them. So he always like tries to like chirp, try to get her mad, and then get her to come the direction that he is. And he's used that before, and it's worked out a lot. And I've tried it, but I'm still trying. I can't say that it for real works, but like if you think about it that way, like it's
that
just
makes sense too, because I've noticed with the turkeys, like there's like a lead hen usually, always in the group, and that's the ones that seems like the the Jakes are kind of mixed in there with him sometimes, but the main Tom is always kind of lagging behind.
Yeah.
Or he's like the ones for us we've seen lately, they've always been kind of behind a little bit. I've heard, like I said, again, different things, different places. But yeah, we just do much better with just the hand decoy and like,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been learning to use a slate call. I cannot figure out how to do mouth calls, but I just got them a couple days ago, so that's probably why. But
Yeah,
they
it takes a little bit to get
yeah.
used to them for sure.
Well, my wife is a musician. She plays like 12 different instruments.
Oh wow!
And so she was really good at flute, saxophone, clarinet. Matter of fact, I went and watched her one time at a play here in Beaumont, Texas, and she was the in the orchestra pit. And she's over there playing flute 1 minute for one part of it was a Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was a show, and she's playing flute 1 minute. Next minute she picks up the saxophone, plays it. Next minute she picks up the clarinet. And I'm like, oh my goodness gracious! And the woman does artwork too, so I'm like,
yeah.
You would think, okay, look, quit bragging, okay? Like leave the artwork to me at least a little bit, don't take all of it. So she does a little bit of all of it. So, and she helps take care of all these wild children we have running around this house. So it's pretty interesting how we do it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, she's helped me learn how to try to blow those but even she was like, oh, I'm struggling with blowing these things too because it's weird how you got to fit them in your mouth.
Yeah, and you got to figure out what size works for you and what shape works for you and everything else. And I try to get a new call, or at least if there's one that comes out that I want to try kind of every year. I've got a couple basic ones that I can like Yelp on. And I can do a little bit of clucking and purring. Sometimes I can get it on right, and I stick with that one. And I bought a couple of those because I know I liked it.
Yeah.
But then I want to try other stuff because I follow guys like Bo Brooks and stuff on Instagram, and hearing him call and like some of these world champion callers, especially the people that are like sponsored by the brands and stuff, and hearing them call, and it's like I try to just listen to it and mimic it, and that's the way I've learned because. Listening to them, they'll explain, well, you got to put your tongue this way, and it's got to. I just got to listen to it and then just keep blowing on it until that sounds kind of like it was, and then try it like that.
I'm just gonna sit there and probably keep plucking away at the slate call right now. I got it because the guy who's been teaching me that's what he's always used, and but he had a handmade slate call. It's actually got a turkey foot carved on the bottom of the lid, and it's got a feather carved in and stick. So it's really pretty how it's made. Yeah, and you can tell, that's like a serious turkey thing to have all that stuff. And so it works out really good. And he's been teaching me a lot. He's been showing me how to do everything with it. And he's like, you're catching on pretty fast. I was like, well, I practice every chance I get. I've even got to the point where I'm probably going to start carrying it with me in the morning to work. Sometimes before I go in, I'll just, do 5 or 10 minutes with it to see if I, every day try to get a little practice. Same thing with art,
Exactly. And I was going to say, man, that slate call, from what you do with brushes and artwork, I imagine that you could run that slate pretty well and know how to kind of manipulate, that tool that you have.
Yeah, he was saying, there's a sensibility to it. Mm-hmm. For especially for purrs and stuff, and you've got to learn how to drag it. So it's kind of like dragging a dry brush when you're painting. So that's kind of interesting because you got to know how to do that. And then, doing the little circular swirls for the long calls. I call it like a long call, but I'm not sure what it is. I'm still learning the little flux. It's all about holding that hand real stiff and just kind of twitching, almost like when you're painting, like doing just little leaves or something on a tree kind of thing. So, yeah, I can see where there's a lot of similarities to painting and doing that at the same time. So that's pretty cool. I never thought about it that way, but I guess that would maybe give me a little bit of up. So I need to look at it that way.
For sure, man. And this is awesome. I love when podcasts start like this and we just get into a conversation and going. But I do, speaking, since we're on that topic of art and creating things, I kind of do want to do a little intro for you so people know who you are.
Sure.
Welcome everybody to the Tejas Hunt Club podcast. This is another episode on this week. And this week we're sitting with Mr. Calvin Carter, who is an outdoor and Western artist. In a world, in a time when we're mostly on our phones looking at photos and videos shot in 4K, it's really cool to see that artists like Calvin here are still creating and beautiful pieces, mind you, in this age when with paint and pen and an older way and the original way that art really was. So I wanted to have him on the podcast and kind of talk about that because, as most of you know, we create videos and photos. I took art in school. I enjoyed it, but I cannot draw. I can finger paint. I got some cool finger paints and things that I did as a kid still at my mom's house that I can pull up. But
where'd
no.
you take art school at?
No. I'm talking about like art in elementary school. Yeah.
Okay.
I got you. Elementary school. But yeah. But I wanted to get him on the podcast and kind of talk about hunting, fishing, and art that isn't recognized as much in 2025 for most people because they're, on their phones. So being able to show that and the way he's adapted to even like showing his art on the phone, so it's coming up. So Calvin, give us a little intro about yourself, tell the listeners who you are, and then we'll get into kind of your story.
Okay. I was raised in Hempstead, Texas. I graduated there with old Fighting Bobcats in 1994. But I spent a lot of time there close to Eagle Lake and Katy goose and duck hunting. That was what really got me started. I used to, my grandma used to make fun of me because she said I would sit out there for hours with binoculars watching the snow geese because we had a lot back then, which is sad to me now. We don't have them anymore, but we used to have so many snow geese. I mean, it was nothing to every day have them there for like months around where we lived because we had a 40-acre reservoir back behind our house. Now, it wasn't our property. It was someone else's, but it wasn't very far from the house, and we would catch them when they come over. Yeah. And we'd shoot them like they would be so thick around our house. My mom one time stuck the gun out the door and shot 3 of them in the yard by the swing set because they had literally gotten a foggy field and they spilled over into our yard. But there was hundreds of them, and she shot them right off the screen door. And this was a long time back in the 80s. I mean, there was just geese and ducks around there all the time. There was nothing to just have your backpack on and a jacket and get behind the house and here they come over and boom, you shoot one and it fall right in the yard. And when I tell people that, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you had I was like, yeah, I'd go throw it in the freezer and then jump on the school bus. I got in the house and go get in the school bus and go to school,
Oh man, that's
clean
awesome.
it when I got home." I said it was a crazy experience. And so that's what I really go with the geese and the ducks because that's what started me drawing a lot. Now, my grandpa and dad could both draw. Grandpa drew a little bit when he was in the military. He served in World War II over in the Philippines. And my dad was a police officer, but they both did artwork. But they never really pursued it, anything like what I do with it.
Yeah.
But they used to challenge me at the table all the time to draw stuff. Like they would draw little cartoon characters and challenge me, and I still am quite competitive about stuff, which is crazy. But I was very competitive. So I was like, oh no, I can do better than that. I can whoop y'all. That was always my mentality. I'm going to whip you. And so as I got older, I just continued that kind of mentality to always push to do the best with the stuff. But to this day, I still remember sitting there watching those geese with binoculars. Like I said, my grandma used to always say, she goes, "I think if you could, you'd fly home with those geese every year and then come back." Because she said you spend so much time observing them. But that's how I learned to really catch mannerisms and things that birds and animals do. And so when I go into the field now with a camera, like the other day, I was watching the turkeys. And it's funny because you brought that up about hens. And there was a hen. She'd been in the decoys for a while, or the decoy a while, and there was 2 deer. And another hen comes strolling down the sendero. And as soon as she got close enough, the other one ran over there and started chasing her around to let her know, "Hey, you can come here. This is my house."
Yeah.
And then after a couple minutes, they were feeding side by side, but she was still leading the feed, like she was ahead of her. And I thought, well, that's interesting. That stuff when you put in a painting, you want to try to think about things like that. Real turkey hunters or deer hunters or duck hunters or goose hunters are going to know that. They're going to think about stuff like that. There's a famous artist by the name of Guy Kolick was a famous artist, wildlife artist, went all over the world. And he talked about with me one time about, I asked him, I said, what's the best advice you can give me? He said, well, I can always give you, the one thing I can tell you is all the mistakes I made, so not to do those.
Yeah.
And so that was his best advice. But really, later on, I was reading his book, and he I got commissioned by this lady who was an elephant hunter, and she was a big time elephant hunter. I think it was like in the 70s or something. And she was like, I don't know if there was some kind of awards thing or something through Safari Hunting International or something. She had won a bunch of awards for elephant hunting. She commissioned me to do a painting of an elephant charging, and he did the painting, got it to her, and as soon as she looked at it, she goes, "That's not how an elephant charges. That's not what they look like when they do it." She goes, "I'm not going to buy the painting until you can get it right." So he said he decided he was going to go to Africa and figure out how to actually videotape an elephant charging. And so he calls all these guys up over there who are wardens and game hunters and stuff, and ask them, they all tell him, most time it's going to always be a fake charge. Always. You just, stand your ground and they'll turn and walk away. Now we're talking about standing ground with a really big animal,
Yeah.
I mean, a big animal that can literally squish you with their foot or rip you apart with their trunk. And so he goes over there and he says the first elephant he finds, he gets up close to it, forces it to charge him by getting too close to it. It stops, turns and walks away. He got all this video. This is back when people were doing the handheld video footage, and the little VHS tape in the camera thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, okay, well, I got the hang of this. I'm gonna go on to the next one. So he went around and found another bull elephant, and I don't remember what game place reserve he was on, but the next one did not stop, and it threw him. I don't remember how many feet, and then it got on top of him and was trying to push down with its head to crush him. But luckily, its tusk had got hung in the dirt, so it couldn't finish
all the way down
on him. And he was lucky enough there was a game warden in the area who fired over the elephant and spooked it off. But after he did that painting, when he got back, he said everybody knew that that's what an elephant looks like when it charges because he had firsthand experience.
Yeah.
And so as wildlife and sporting artists, I think we have to take that from those people and get off the phones like you're talking about a while ago and get out there and get personal with the actual animals and the fish and the birds. I mean, there's times where I painted fish and then I went back and caught the fish and looked at it and go, oh, wow, I felt it, the way it feels or looks at it. And I go, oh, wow, this is different than what I did it. I did it wrong. I need to keep this in mind next time. And, just taking a photo of it's not enough. Sometimes you have to get out there and really experience what it's like. And that's what I was doing. Also, this past weekend was working on for some commissions for a customer. And I got out in the field with him to places he was wanting to paint. And it was really helpful to me because I came back and did some sketches this week for him already. And he's like, wow, these are really awesome. I said, man, you know what the difference was, don't you? I said, you didn't just send me some photos in. I actually came and saw it. And my professor told me one time, he said, I was trying to paint a picture of a moose at a lake with some mountains when I was in school. And he said, why are you painting this picture? And I said, well, I just think it would look really cool. And I've always wanted to go to the mountains. I've always wanted to see a moose and stuff like that. And he goes, but why would you paint that? You have no experience with that. You don't want to paint things you have no connection to or no feeling to or understanding of it. And I never realized it till as I got older. I was like, wow, he's right. You can't write a story about something without some experience of what you're writing about. You can't sing a song that really feels to people if you don't have the experience,
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same thing with the art and painting. You need, if you're going to be a wildlife or sporting artist, you need to get out there and get with the wildlife.
Yeah, exactly. And it's cool to be able to, because most of the time, like with you and painting for these people, it's some of these people may not have been in these situations. Like you're trying to paint the picture for someone that may not have seen the thing that you've seen, and you have to be able to convey like what you saw, because it's showing what it really is. We're really lucky, I think, for doing video and photo, and you doing art and painting and sketches.
Really
and
blessed
because of the places and the things that we get to see. Like,
yeah.
9 times out of 10, like my buddy Jared and I, we were in Idaho. We were hunting mule deer, and like we were watching these mule deer off in this flat, and we're just sitting there like hunched down, and like we hear something crunching in the snow. and like this little marmot comes by with some kind of rodent in its mouth, and like
Mm.
we just looked at it and we were just like, and then as soon as it didn't see us, it was just on its way, and then it went in the brush and we just looked at each other and we are like, dude, that was so cool. Like there's how are we at this exact spot to be in the way to be able to see that one run by, and
Yeah.
not just run by, but run by with something in its mouth. It's like we were worried about the bears possibility being the other hunters out there, but there's stuff way smaller than us that's out there hunting too, and being able to just see that it's really cool, and not a lot of people are going to get to see.
I remember when I was working on the one of the pieces for one of the federal duck stamp competitions, and I chose to do the old northern shoveler or smiling mallard, and I didn't have a lot of really good photos of a shoveler. Now, I know it sounds crazy since there's so many of them that come in this area. Most people don't want to even shoot shovelers.
Yeah.
But I got a hold of this guy, and he told me, he said, I got a place where you can get lots of pictures of shovelers. I said, well, where is that? He goes, well, it's the city water treatment plant. And I said, are you serious? And he goes, yeah. You'll go down there on one of the metal rails on the container, and you'll just lay out there in your ghillie suit, and they'll come in there. And he said, there won't be just one of them. There'll be like 50 to 100 of them come in there, and they'll be all around you. And a lot of them are big old bull drakes, with full color. And that's like, okay. So I go out there, and I'm laying on this water treatment waste tank, which probably don't tell them what I've caught over the years from being there. But because I did this for like a month, for like every week or so, or a couple of times a week for a month, I'd go out there. And those ducks would come in there, and they would land within like 10 feet of me, sometimes 12 feet of me, and they'd be really, really close. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. Well, they were so skittish, though. I mean, if I moved even that ghillie suit, because they were looking at me like, why is there a bale of hay on top of that catwalk thing? Something's not right
Something
here.
right.
Yeah, this doesn't match the environment. Well, they would spook out. And so for the first couple of times, they were real skittish. I could barely even move the camera. And then as I kept going and going, less and less spooks they got. And finally, on like about the last day, and I probably had about 5,000 photos at this point, more photos than I'd ever use of a spoonbill. And because I'm one of those guys with a digital camera, I'm like, I'm just going to take all I can because I can always delete it.
Yep.
And just trash it, and I can use the ones I need.
Buy big cards.
Yeah. It's better when I used to use film. That was terrible. I had 24 shots and I was scared to use any of them. It's like, it's got to be a really good picture. That eagle needs to pose with that fish in his mouth, man. I can't do this.
Yeah.
But so the last day on that catwalk thing, I was sitting there and I just said, I'm going to see what they'll do. So I just sat straight up, and they were like, literally like 10 feet, 12 feet from me. And these are wild shovelers. And I sat up, and they all looked kind of funny, like, oof, what's that? I took my hood off. I just leaned against the metal rail, and I just sat there and watched them. I didn't even take any pictures. And they just stayed there with me because they had finally gotten used to realizing I wasn't there to hurt them.
Yep.
Now, eventually I stood up, and they took off out of there. Wow. But they gave me at least 5 or 10 minutes of just that. And it was really cool to have that connection. Like, oh, wow, they realize I'm not here to hurt them. I'm not out to get them. And they've been giving me what I need, was all the pictures I need. So it's just that really cool connection with nature. And those are things that we get to do that a lot of people don't get to do.
Yep.
And it's really too bad, because I think if people did do that, they would be like, wow. And that goes back to our trading cards stories. That's what gives us all these really cool stories. And I think about what it must have been like for Native Americans and cowboys on the plains a long time ago. The stories those guys must have told that never got written down. Imagine all the different things they experienced.
Like, if I had a time machine, that's probably the era that I'd want to go to. Like, I would want to be riding a horse and come over the top of a hill or a mountain and look down, and I would want to see a valley of bison.
Buffalo. Yeah.
Oh, dude, like if just that would be like my moment. If you had a time machine, it's like, where do you want to go? I want to go and see that and see how many of them. I've worked cows. I've seen a bunch of cows in one spot, but just to see herds and like just a massive herd of buffalo.
Yeah. And I couldn't imagine like trying to ride a horse to shoot one of them, because the first thing they do, when you run them like that on horseback, because I had a friend, he actually wears Native American regalia still and hunts them off horseback with a lance and a bow and arrow, like the
Oh,
old
awesome.
way.
Yeah.
And so the dangers of that is one, when you go after them, and I didn't realize this, they're like any other animal. They're going to take you into the roughest country they can to try to shake you loose.
Yep.
And up in the plains areas, a lot of times it's prairie dog holes. Well, that's not a place you want to take a running horse.
No, it's not.
That's a quick way to break a leg and send you flying. And the other thing he told me is, you think you're doing fine when you're riding this horse bareback and you're chasing these buffalo, you know, and you're getting into it. And all of a sudden the horse kicks his head off to one side, and guess what? He just got speared in the neck. And so he's actually speared his own horse before by accident. Because it's just, it's a lot rougher and harder than the movies makes it out to be. You know, that's what he was telling me. And so I think about that, and I think about, I was reading some books about guys who were captured by the Native Americans in Texas by Comanches and Apaches. And it was, I think it's Lehman's book, if I remember right. If you've ever read that, it's a really good book. It was, I think his name, I can't think of the whole thing. I have the book somewhere. I'll have to send you a picture of it. But
yeah, definitely.
It's really cool. He talks about hunting bears during certain times of the years for food. And I thought, wow, hunting bears like in the hills of like New Mexico, Arizona, or Northwest Texas with a bow and arrow. I'm like, wow, you're really got to be hungry, and you really need food for your people, because that's not something you're going to be easily take this animal down with.
Yeah.
And he just talks about it because he rode with the Apaches and like the different things they did and some of the hunting stories. And, you know, they would hunt turkeys too, and they would hunt deer. But a lot of people don't realize there was elk and bear in the plains during this time. There were antelope. There was a lot of animals that are not here in this, you know, abundant in this area. They would have been all over the place back then.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, just fun stuff like that. That's part of the art stuff that I love too. That you get to meet a lot of history people and people, especially with the Western stuff. I've had a lot of people who have taught me, historians. I've met Native Americans who, you know, that's one of the best honors I think I've gotten in my work. Is I have a good friend. He's my friend, you know, a good friend of mine now, Daniel Long Soldiers, amazing artist. He's a Lakota guy, full blood Lakota, still speaks Lakota. He saw one of my paintings on the Facebook one time, and he just sent a message on there. He's an older guy, and he just sent a message on there. He says, "Call me," and I'm thinking, okay, I don't know this guy. So I'm thinking, well, should I call him? Is he going to chew me out? Is this going to be a bad thing? Like, you know, why are you painting this? Or is it going to be a good thing? So I called him, and he answered the phone. He goes, and I said, "Hey, this is Calvin Carter." And he goes, "Did you the one that paint that picture of those two guys on horseback in the plains?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he goes, how did you know all that stuff? I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "How did you know about their hair and the shields and the way you did it?" I said, "Well, I've got some guys I've worked with, you know, they make replicas for the Smithsonian sometimes. Like, they actually go out and get mule deer antlers to make saddle horns, and they actually use sinew still to do all the stitching. I mean, it may take a long time to do just one saddle." He said, "That is a really good painting." He said, "That's exactly the way my grandpa used to talk about things." And I was like, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah." And that was like a huge honor and respect thing. You know, he was like, "I really, really love your work." He says, "You do such a good job of portraying us the way we're supposed to." He goes, "Why does everybody always put us up in the mountain with no clothes on? What Native American wants to be up in the mountain with no clothes on?"
Yeah.
And I said, "You got a point there." And he goes, "We would have had clothes. Why are we?" He goes, "No, that we lived in the plains more than we did up in the mountains and the hills, like a lot of us did, you know. So why would we, you know, why were we always naked with no clothes on in the mountains?" And I said, "I don't know." And he goes, it was just funny when he told me that, because he was like, "Yeah, white people always paint us like that."
That's funny. And
said,
now that you think about it, it's always like a snowy scene or something like that, and they're next to like a river, and like they don't have a shirt on. Like, why?
Yeah, and a lot of times he says, why are we at the top of a mountain looking down on another mountain? Like, how high did we get up there? Like, what are we hunting up there? Snow?
Yeah.
We're looking for the ultimate icicle. I mean, it was. And I thought, man, you know, that's a point, because my guys were just on a wide open plains. But I get, like, artists do it because it sells. People like to see the mountains. Like to see the stream. But the reality is, it's, you know, I've been to Kansas and Oklahoma photographing territory there for Western paintings, and it's bare. You know, I mean, you can see a cloud of dust, you know, miles away, which I thought was kind of cool, because my first instinct was that could be a wagon train. that could be cowboys, that could be buffalo herds, that could be another group of Native Americans.
Yeah.
If I'm out scouting or hunting and I see that, my first thought would be, "Woo, do I need to go find out more about that, or do I need to get back to base and let everybody know what's going?" And so
Yeah.
my brain starts playing scenarios and stories like, how can this be a painting? How can this be a story? And I see other people probably looking at it going, "Well, that's just boring scenery," but it's really not. It's kind of cool because it still rolls and moves too, and it has its place. I mean, the early settlers called, was it North Texas, like the sea of grass. There was so
Yeah.
much grass just for miles and miles and miles, and the Comanches were the only ones that knew how to navigate around through that stuff for the longest time.
Exactly, and it's cool that you brought all that up, because it's like a lot of hunting culture, I think, doesn't give the enough like kudos to that section of hunters. Like I really do believe that like hunting and the outdoorsmen, back to like the long hunters that first came, that were exploring Kentucky and
Oh
Tennessee,
yeah,
when the Appalachian Mountains were the boundary line. Like I'm hard. I'd have to do more research, obviously, but it's not as prevalent in other countries as like how our country was founded off that stuff.
right.
Even from the West, like you said, with the Native Americans and the tribes out there, and then how they learned and mixed and fought over. I mean, everything was fought over hunting land, hunting rights. And if you that's where we wanted to be. Like that was the main thing. Like with the long hunters coming over into Kentucky, and they're seeing all this, and the Native Americans like, no, this is my hunting grounds.
Yeah, well, I mean,
This
look
is
at
ours.
if we get into the Cheyenne, for example, they got pushed out of the Michigan Minnesota area onto the plains, and that's the first time they saw the tatanka, the big
Yeah.
beast, the buffalo, and that's what became their main staple of for so many things. I mean, the bladders used for water, sinew. You got people think the buffalo hump is where you get the shield, but the shield's actually cut from around the fat part of the neck. That's where you get the really thickest part, because that's where buffalo fight, and that's where they
And they're
need the most
hooking each
protection.
other. Yeah.
But honestly, when you're hunting, and you and I know this, if we're hunting for meat, and you're going for, just say, axis deer, what are you probably really going for? Probably a doe, right? You're not
Yeah.
probably going for a buck. You want meat. So if I'm going out to hunt, am I going for a bull buffalo, or am I going for a young cow or cat, or steer? I'm probably going for the cow or the steer. For
Yeah.
one, the bull is going to be harder to pull down anyway with shots, but I want a young, tender, buffalo.
Piece of meat.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's the whole thing. And two people don't think about that. And that's one of the things that Daniel always told me that I thought was really cool. He said, people think of us and they think of these movies and all this stuff, but the reality is a lot of it is just basic thinking. Like, you know, I'm going hunting. I'm not going to dress up in all my good clothes and put makeup, war paint on if I'm going hunting.
Yeah.
Because why? Because one, what happens when you clean an animal? You get bloody. And cleaning
Yep.
a buffalo, you're really going to get dirty. And a lot of people don't know they would tie their braids, tie their braids behind their head when they're cleaning, which makes sense because if you're leaning over cleaning an animal, what's going to happen? Your hair's going to get in.
Hairs are
So
gonna
they
get
would
in.
tie up, and they would also take their breechcloth and tuck it up high so it wouldn't get dirty. So technically, if you're doing a painting of something like that, that would be the proper way to do it because that's what they did.
That's what they were
But
doing.
when you see movies like, and I'm not picking on Dances with Wolves because I love Dances with Wolves, but they're all painting up their horses and their faces. They like he told me, and Cheyenne people told me this too, and even Crow guy I'm friends with, some of my Crows, they said, "Well, do you put on a tuxedo to go to the grocery store?"
Yeah.
I said no, and they said, "Well, see, it's the same thing. It's basic common sense. Like you're going to do certain things for certain reasons."
Yeah, I would imagine if they were to do anything, and I mean, obviously tell me if I'm wrong or if you've heard this, like I would be more inclined to like be rubbing like mud or dirt or putting grass on me to kind of like blend in with like
Yeah.
camouflage.
Or the
not
hides.
right-
They
Yeah.
wear the hides of a coyote or wolf to get close. But like if you're on horseback, you're not going to need anything on you. But like you're talking about, like if you're turkey hunting or something, yeah, they probably
Yeah.
would, or deer, or they shot badgers. They would eat a lot of different animals. I mean, there was all kinds of things on the menu back then. I mean, antelope. I don't know if you ever knew this, but they used to run antelope into pits and then club them. like get down there and
Yeah.
club them to death. Like they would run them into a pit, you know?
Yep.
And it's kind of like the buffalo jumpers where they would jump them off the cliffs,
Yep,
you know,
off the cliffs.
The pits were that the antelope would do. And Bent, I don't know if you know about Bent. He was the one that had Bent's Fort out in Colorado. He was with the Native Americans a lot during this time, and he would talk about so many antelope that they would be able to load up a wagon still of some of the dead ones after they got done. And someone said, well, they wouldn't do that. And I go, no, hold on. As a hunter, I can say there's times where your fangs come out and you're like, boom, I shot that turkey. There's 2 more there. Okay, I just can't let it go. I got to get another one. You know, it's your fangs come out and you get like this, like testosterone, you know, built up, bloodthirsty type attitude that I'm going to keep going. And I think that's what happened to them sometimes. You know, I mean, you're thinking, you know, you're in there clubbing these animals. You're probably like, oh, I'm going to get, you know, as many as I can. And who's going to make the call? I mean, it's chaos probably during something like that.
And how many days and weeks did they go when they haven't had a piece of meat before that?
Yes.
Like,
well,
and
how long? 50 miles sometimes to find food. You know?
Yeah, and if I'm going 50 miles to get some food, we're coming. If you've seen that Denzel meme, it's like we're coming back with something.
Yes, exactly. And you know, that's another thing too. People don't know is they would carry 2 horses with them when they went on these hunts. You had your what I call the Ferrari, and you had your Beetle,
yeah,
or your Volkswagen Bug, you know, whatever. And so you would ride your Volkswagen Bug to the place, and your Beetle, your Ferrari would be with you. But when you got to the hunting spot, get ready to get saddled up, you'd switch horses, and you would take your fastest horse into the hunt
with you. Yeah,
yeah, and then you would unsaddle it and go back to your old one to take it. You know, or the old one would carry the meat out. Sometimes you still ride the good one. So there's a lot of things like that you never see portrayed about them, but it's there. You know, there's tons of facts about this stuff there. Then when you start digging into it, you're like, there's a whole new world about them that we don't even know. It's amazing how much stuff that as you start research, like, you know, the Comanches, unbelievable, you know, and they're Texans, you know, all the way, but they would drink water out of a dead horse's stomach if they had to survive. You know, I mean, they would do whatever it took. And they had, you know, people always think, oh, you know, they put them on these big horses in the movies and stuff, but they had little bitty small Mustangs that were brought over by the Spaniards. And one of the reasons why that was so beneficial to them is it's, you know, smaller horse, smaller gas you have to put into it, kind of like a car. You know, it goes longer, goes further, less maintenance. And the cavalry guys had these big, you know, stocky horses that were grain fed and stuff, couldn't live off the land as well. So, I mean, it's hard to catch a guy who's got a little rough, tough little car that can just take off and keep going and going and going. And
they're like a little, in a little rally car, and they're just covering ground.
Yeah, your dually runs out of gas because, you know, it can't go as many miles as this little car can. So it's kind of like the same kind of concept with the horses too. So there was so many, like I said, and I can go on and on about all that stuff because there's so much stuff I've learned. It's really fascinating to me.
Yeah,
like, I love the history of all this stuff.
I love Texas history. I guess it was just destined for me too, because like I said, being born and growing up in Goliad, and especially like my family on my mom's side, they've been in that area for I was the 5th generation to be born in Goliad. So like it's pretty cool about all the history and the things that have gone on. Like there's a book called the Black Cowboys, and my great uncle was like one of the first documented like black cowboys that were taking cattle like from South Texas, that were catching them and then taking them up to the shipping yards and stuff in Oklahoma and Kansas and everything. So it was pretty cool to find out that history and to kind of grow up a little bit knowing about that history, and then having friends also, or like family friends and stuff that had history like that, like families that have been in that area and owned pieces of property and ran cattle and been cowboys and stuff their whole life. Like it's like I said, it's a really cool little spot in South Texas to grow up in. And I mean, there's
it's a really
other
pretty
spots,
area too.
Yeah, and there's other spots too, like that are like that in Texas. Of course, you kind of go out west, you get to Freer and out that way. There's some cool family stuff that goes down there. But just being able to like to know that kind of stuff, because I've gone on to college and I get to like talking about these things with different people, and then like, oh yeah, I remember Goliad, you know, for the history and all that kind of stuff. But it's like it's even cooler to get to grow up there and kind of like it's something that's like a part of you. Like we went to the missions every year for school, like we used to play out there and do all that kind of stuff. So, and to know that people like I always knew it was something big, I guess, when I was a kid, because like you would call them the snowbirds, you know. So you would
Oh
see
yeah,
all these license plates from Minnesota and Michigan and South and North Dakota, and I'm like, man, they're driving all that way just to come to Goliad and see this mission. Like
yeah.
it's got to be cool. Like
And you
for them to
think,
want to spend that time there, they could go
and I don't know
anywhere
about
else.
you, but I always think about this, especially like when I and this came to me one time when I was at the Houston Museum looking at artwork, and there was these Greek sculptures and Roman sculptures and stuff, and I thought, I wonder who walked past these things at one time. Like, did Socrates walk by here? Did Caesar ride a horse by here? Did Napoleon and his men come by this thing? You know, who all
Yeah.
seen this thing through history? And so when I think of Goliad, I think of the same thing. Like, how many of those guys who saw that thing get built, everything people would still be even looking at it? You know, how many of them spent the night there hungry or cold or needed a bed to stay, and that was the place to go? You know, never thinking that years and years down the road, people are going to come there to look at it as like a, you know, a treasure, you know, a historical site. Like they're thinking, it's just, I always think like if you brought people back and forth from the past to here, they'd be just blown away probably about the things that we appreciate,
Yeah.
because it was to them probably not as big a deal sometimes it is to us now. I mean, we celebrate so many of these things. It's so cool, but my only thing that worries me is as a future of like being a school teacher is that our youth, they don't seem to be as interested in some of these things as I wish they were, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where I try to inject as much stuff as I can, you know, and I know it's hard with art because so many people think art is kind of a, you know, just coloring in between the lines kind of thing sometimes. But,
Yeah.
and that's when people like my high school kids, they did it this year and they were all excited about painting. You know, I can't wait to paint. And as they started actually getting into it, it was cracking me up because they were just like, this is so much harder than I thought it was. And I was like, yeah. And they were like, I
Yeah.
actually have a new respect for this, Mr. Carter. Like, it's hard to believe that you do this. Like, how long have you been doing this for? I was like, I started drawing when I was like, I always say 5 because when I won my first art contest in kindergarten.
Heck yeah.
You know, I was like 5 years old, I think is what it was. And then I won the Isaac Walton Lee Youth Show in like when I was 17. I did the poster for all the parks all across the country and stuff like that. And so that was a really big thing for me. And then I just been painting and drawing ever since then, you know, and done the Texas duck stamp, the saltwater stamp, freshwater stamp, the upland stamp. I've done some CCA stamps. You know, I was really blessed to get on the curve of that before all that program ended, you know, in Texas, because I really hated it ended because it was really such a fun thing to be a part of, but it had ran for a pretty good while, you know. But it was a good thing for artists to get that part to where we could actually explore. And that's my other concern is I see a lot of programs disappearing over the years. Like Texas DU, don't do the Texas DU Artist No More of the Year or sponsor artists like we used to, which I did that too. Just a lot of things have kind of dwindled off with it. And now that I'm seeing all this AI coming out, it really makes me nervous because people now can just generate artwork themselves. And I don't think people realize it's not the same as someone actually handcrafting something. Like I still like things that are handmade.
Yeah. Yeah.
But maybe I'm an old soul. I don't know.
No, not at all. I mean, to me, the AI generated. I mean, even for the video stuff, like it's like you can AI generate an entire movie if you really wanted to, and they can make it up. But I still think like back to what you were talking about earlier, and knowing the authenticity, how authentic something actually is.
I got you.
Because there's always going to be there. I think it's good, but I don't think it's gonna get to the point of, like you said, a handmade thing. Now, are you going to have a lot of people opt for that because it's cheaper? Maybe, possibly, but I still think there is going to be, especially for people that are passionate about certain subjects, like the Western lifestyle stuff, like the outdoors, any kind of like sculptures. You're still going to have a section that are still going to want that and want the real thing versus something that anybody else can have. Because I mean that's going to be the real that's going to be the real designator.
Yeah.
When you have AI, it's like everybody can have AI, but
Right.
but I want the thing that's special. like we'll pay the $99.99 for it, the AI generated version, but I'd rather spend the money, especially if it's something that I care about and I'm passionate about. I want to spend the money to get the real thing. It's just
Yeah.
it like I said, it worries me, but I still use it as a tool. It can
Oh
be
yeah,
used
yeah.
as a tool, but it's like it's just like everything else, man. It's gonna be like same thing with social media when people brought it on. It's like this is gonna be the death to to print, like a lot of people thought, and for a lot of print magazines, it was. But
Yeah.
you still had the real ones that were, that knew what they had and had enough engaged audience to keep going and adopt new things. And I think that's what artists are going to have to do, and it's going to separate the people that really want to and the ones that don't.
And that's I was talking to a gallery dealer the other day. I don't know if you know, but I show my work at the Sporting Art Gallery in Nashville, Tennessee, and Charleston, South Carolina. Those are two places. And they
Okay.
also have a location in Beaver, Colorado. So I'm getting to actually show stuff like all over the country now because
Awesome.
those are nationally known galleries.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in there with a lot of, really, really big name artists, which is crazy. Like some of them guys I looked up when I was a kid. So it's really wild to have artwork in the same
In
place
the
with these
same
guys,
place, yeah.
And it's kind of like, must be like when being a rookie and you get to see Michael Jordan on the court with you the first time, you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that's Michael.
Yeah,
So that's the way
exactly.
I feel when I look over the painting. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's David Moss's painting, or Eldridge Hardy, these famous sporting artists that I looked up to as a kid. And he was talking about, I asked him, I said, what do you think about prints? And he's like, honestly, the print market's been kind of down for a long time because the market got so flooded over the years with so many prints. Like, everybody got to where they were just printing anything they did,
Mm-hmm.
they would scratch something on a piece of paper, print it, make
Yeah.
1,200 copies, sell them, And so like me and some of the other guys, we've gotten down to where we only do like series of maybe 100 on some of my paintings because, and I really, a lot of guys get kind of aggravated with me, I think, because I don't print a lot of stuff. And the reason why is because I want people who buy originals to have something nobody else has.
Mm-hmm.
And what got me that way, and I'll tell you this because I think this is something people don't think about. There's a famous artist named John Singer Sargent. I don't know if you've ever seen Sargent's work. You've probably seen his work, didn't know it was John Singer Sargent.
Yeah.
He's got work on all kinds of stuff, calendars, mugs. He's an older artist from a long time ago. A lot of stuff. And museums, they sell shirts with his paintings on there, everything. I mean, just flooded with a lot of stuff like him, like Leonardo da Vinci, Van Gogh, Monet, those things like that, just flooded with that stuff like everywhere. And I was working for a company in Houston called Crate Works, where we would actually ship like really expensive artwork all over the world. Like sometimes you might get a Picasso in a crate off an airplane, and you had to go in an unmarked vehicle to get this painting and then get it back to the place without anybody knowing.
That sounds so cool.
It was cool, but it wasn't paying enough to be that cool. But it was really awesome. It was really awesome because you never know what you were going to open up out of the crate. You get some, Salvador Dali paintings and Van Goghs and Monets and all kinds of wild stuff these people would buy. People buy those things, believe it or not. And I was in this person's house. It was a very, very nice place in River Oaks. And I was walking around. We had to put some artwork in there, install what they had purchased, which was very expensive artwork. And I walk into this bedroom, and there's a John Singer Sargent painting, an original, on the wall. And I'm just like, wow, I've never seen these except in a museum. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'd never seen the painting before. And it was this really cool feeling of feeling kind of special getting this chance to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that's what I want my customers to feel when they look at their originals, that they're the only ones who get to see that. Or if someone walks into a hunting lodge and they see one of those paintings for the first time that they've never seen, they'd be like, wow, I've never seen this one before. And over the years, I've had guys tell me that. They're like, man, I was at this place, so-and-so's house, and I walk in, and there was a John Cowan on the wall. I'd never seen it before. It was really cool, and it sticks in my mind. I'm like, okay. So there's something to the idea of protecting your artwork from being mass produced, in my opinion. Like you just, I don't know, you water it down too much and you wash it away by just printing everything all the time. And I like for it to be when it's out there, if it's printed, the guys who do get it, and once it's done, and it's like, say it's 100 and they're all gone, that's it. They're never made again. So whoever has them, has them. And so that's always kind of been my goal, is I want my customers who buy originals and stuff to have stuff that's like one of a kind. that their kids can pass. You know, people who bought Jack Cowan's work years ago for $12,000 when before he passed away, that was like the highest I think his market got, are now selling them for $24,000 to $30,000 a piece, and have no problem selling them.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, those people who collected that, their families are probably like, wow, you know, this is cool. We got this painting, and it's worth a lot of money now. You know, even Bob Ross, I saw the other day, someone found one of his paintings at like a garage sale or like a flea market or something, and it was worth a lot of money because it was the first one he'd ever done for one of his first episodes.
Wow.
So it was worth like $1 million something. I can't remember, but it was
Holy cow.
crazy. You know, his family found it at like I think it was maybe a Goodwill or something.
Oh my
But it was
gosh.
original Bob Ross, and but it was not just any Bob Ross. It was the first one that started the TV show.
Oh, dude,
Like how that one got out there, who knows?
Yeah, and whoever dropped it off at the Goodwill or the garage sale or whatever was like, how do you? Oh, just gave it away.
Yeah, I heard one time where a family was going through their like grandparents' closet or something, and they were digging around in there, and they found this old painting of the Titanic. And, you know, it was just, you know, a little bitty painting of the Titanic. It was like nothing real big. But as they went and like the brown paper on the back of the painting was kind of torn, where they noticed there was something in there. So they opened it up and pulled it out. And there was an actual menu from the Titanic on the back of that. It had survived somehow. And it was in the back of that painting.
Holy cow.
You know, that like people would just be like, oh my God, there's part of history that, you know, that's definitely lost. The bottom of the ocean, but here's a piece of it that survived. And so it's just stuff like that. You know, you think, you know, if people would mass produce that, it would not have the same effect.
No.
And that's what I always say, like, you know, putting everything on a magnet or a calendar or a shirt's not always the greatest idea for that stuff, you know.
Very, very true. Very true. There's a place for those kind of things, of course. There's a market for it, but like there's got to be a higher level of art that people want to see, want to have, and you got to have people that are going to produce it and not have everything just going everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I want people to come to a show and not know what they're going to see, you know. And I remember you remember when Independence Day came out? I don't know if you're old enough, but you got to see that movie when you were okay.
Oh yeah.
You remember the preview? It was just the White House getting blown up for a long time with just an alien ship, nothing else.
Yep. Nothing else.
I'm like, oh my God, I got to see that. I got to see that. What's happening? What's going on? And I always thought that was one of the greatest marketing schemes for a movie because they just didn't tell you very much.
Nope.
And it made you want to go see it because you're like, okay, what is that? And that's kind of the way I want to do artwork. I want people to be like, you know, put out a little bit here and there. Now I know in the world we live in with digital and Instagrams and Twitters and Facebooks and all that stuff, you know, I have to put it out a lot to market it to get more customers and more people involved. But again, that goes back to the whole thing with the originals. Like there's pieces I try to get out there sometimes that never get displayed or get seen by anybody. Yeah. Because I want them to be a surprise someday for somebody, kind of like the spaceship blowing up the White House.
Yeah, exactly.
Say. You know, I want people to have that first reaction and being like, wow, that's really cool, you know? And so it's just, I think the art business is tough with the sporting art. There's not as much markets or venues, it seems like in Texas, there used to be. But I will say one thing about all the Texans, they've all been really good customers, a lot of them. And a lot of them are like repeat customers, which is really cool because they keep you going. And like I said, you do the same thing I do. You get to go to a lot of really cool places and see and meet a lot of cool people because of the stuff we do. And that in itself is a blessing that you can't put a dollar sign on, you know?
No, not at all. I mean, it's so cool to wake up some mornings and you know, you've been tired, like it's the third day or fourth day, you've been filming and recharging batteries and going to sleep and then trying to catch this and do that. And then you wake up and then you get to see something cool in the outdoors that like we talked about earlier and nobody else gets to see. And it makes it kind of just like makes you believe and understand like that's where you're supposed to be, right? And that's what you're supposed to be doing. Like don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking. I mean, I have a day job just like you, but it's always what's the next project and where do I get to go and what do I get to see? And luckily for me too, like my job gets to do that. My day job gets to do that for me working at Silencer Shop also, but there's a lot of computer work, but like, the stuff that Megan and I get to do and go film, and like the animals I get to see, it's just like I've seen 200-inch whitetail. Like I've probably seen so many 200-inch whitetail and not been able to shoot them, but I just get to look at them, and you get to learn about them, man, and you get to see how animals move. And for me, because I like hunting, I just think of it as like recon. And how when I do get the chance to hunt, when I do get to pull the trigger or release an arrow, like it's all that stuff that I got to watch from behind a camera is there as knowledge that I can apply if I need it to.
That does come in handy too. That's the other thing too, is, you know, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Native Americans, the early Western people coming over and hunting and stuff. You know, I'm sure they spent a lot of time observing and learning because they had to. You know, that was their food source. They didn't have McDonald's. They could drive through and get a buffalo burger. You know, it's a little different story. But we are losing a little bit of that, I feel, because most people, not enough people want to get out sometimes to see stuff. Like I have people all the time that are telling me, you know, you hunt turkeys? I didn't even know people hunted turkeys. I just go to the store and buy a turkey. Like, you have no idea what y'all are missing. Like, it's not even about the kill sometimes as much as it is the experience.
Yeah.
You know, like there's been duck hunts and goose hunts I've went on, even fly fishing trips for one, where I never caught a redfish on the fly, but I saw them like tailing, or I saw one weird redfish like sleeping in the grass that I could never get to eat. And I'll remember that redfish till the day I die, just because of the experience with him. And I have a good buddy named Captain Ryan Sparrow, who's a really amazing guy down Lower Laguna Madre, and he's a young guy. He's a school teacher also, and he's just really cool because he's all about, when you get out there fly fishing, about the experience. You know, Ryan's like, it's not always about how many fish we catch today, but it's about the experiences. You know, and he's the kind of guy that's like, look at the colors of that sun, like coming up over there. Look at how calm that water is, or look at that grass and that sand patch over there. You know, things that, like, I look at as an artist to go, oh, you know, that's ingredients for a good painting or ingredients for something I need. But Ryan sees it as like a good ingredients for like the mind and the eyes. You know, he's even better than I am with that because he takes it in like heart and soul with it.
Oh yeah.
And so it's always cool, like going with guys like that who do that stuff. Because I'm not really, I would say, you know, a meat hunter person. Like, I'm gonna go out and try to slay as many as I can kind of thing anymore. I used to be when I was younger, I think, but I think now I understand why, like, a lot of older guys kind of chill on it and they only go after the biggest deer, you know, just one, or one turkey this time. I don't need to shoot more than that. Or, you know, I got enough quail to have for supper, you know, that kind of thing. Like, they cut back because there's some sort of connection over the years. You become kind of like, you want to see this exist and you want that peace and harmony with it still throughout, and you want your others to experience that. So I think you kind of cut back a little bit on the way you look at things. Maybe not everybody, just a lot of the guys I've experienced are kind of like that.
Oh yeah. I think the real hunters, it all I've heard many people say this, but you go through phases, like you said, like you first you just want to kill something, and then you want to kill, and then you want to kill everything, and then you know, you want to kill that old one, and then you want to see other people kill stuff. So it's always a progression, and luckily, like, if you hunt different animals, it's probably never going to be the same across the board with every species. You're going to be kind of in a zone with each one as you go along. Like, but at getting to that point where you want to see other people do it, but you still want to experience it yourself, or even experience it with them for their first time, like, it's a cool thing to do. Like, Megan and I've, like, I'm in between. Like, I still want to kill a lot of stuff, but I also still like seeing other people do it. And for me also, I get to pack around a camera, so it doesn't bother me, like, to not be on the trigger all the time. Like, I'm behind the camera getting it, and I get the same rush. Like, if I can get the shot perfect of them getting the animal, and I can be able to hand them a photo or hand them a video and be like this, and they're just so excited. It's the same rush as me if I'd have pulled the trigger on the deer or the hog or whatever.
I was in Arkansas hunting with a good friend of mine, Will Beatty. He's got Central Flyway Outfitters here around Winnie, and he wanted me to come up to Arkansas, and we were on the White River hunting, and it was a area that was grandfather claused in for this family. So it was actually on a, like, wildlife reserve, but they were grandfathered in because it was their property at one time, so they could still hunt on there. And they had this floating house out there in the middle of the woods. I mean, we're talking about a 2-story house that floated with a picking thing, a place to put your bow. I mean, it was, you know, like 7 or 8 hunters. It was a big floating house. And when the White River would fill up, it would be like 20 feet of water. Your house was floating in the woods. So it wasn't no step out and like,
Yeah.
wade duck
Touch
hunting. You better
ground.
not. Yeah, you don't want to fall out in the water there. And we got out there, and I had my camera, and I'm thinking, man, I'm gonna get some good mallard shots because I don't get to see a lot of mallards here the way we do like there, in the timber especially. And I'm thinking, man, this is a gold run for me. I want to get as many photos as I can to make paintings down through the years from this place. And so these mallards come in, and everybody picks up their gun, and I pick up my camera, and I start clicking, and people are shooting. My buddy looks at me, and he's like, man, I need you to get on that gun and start shooting. I was like, man, I haven't shot in 2 or 3 years. You don't want me shooting anyway. I'm better off with this camera. And he's like, no, we need to kill some ducks. I said, I'm going to get him with the camera. He's like, man, I need you to hunt. And I said, no, it'll be all right. Trust me. And so all day I took pictures. He was pretty frustrated, I think, with me a little bit. But we got back to the lodge, and the guy who owns the place is there, and he's an older gentleman. He doesn't get to hunt that much. And he wanted to see the pictures. So he hooked up the laptop to the camera and started showing the pictures. And he's just loving these pictures. He's like, man, y'all got to come back again, do this. And my buddy looks at me, he goes, don't you ever pick up the gun again. You just use your camera from now on.
Yeah, exactly.
I went to his lodge years later, or not even a year later, like a year later, and there's always blown up pictures from our hunt. And the lodge, and to this day, they're still there. And I always laugh because I said, hey, do I get to use my gun? And he's like, man, you need to use that camera.
Use that camera. Yeah. That camera has an unlock button. And
it's very addicting too.
Yeah. And it gets a lot of people to see things, especially on their own, like you said, on their own property that he doesn't get to get out anymore. He still remembers it in his mind, but now he gets to see it right there.
Yeah. Like, it's a flash for them of the past memory, but now they have a photo there to remind them of all those flashes from the past. Yeah. And that's what the artwork does too, just like what you do with the cameras, I do too with the painting. And that's what people have told me with the paintings. It's really cool. Is they're like, I still look at that painting and think about me and my dad hunting together. And I think one of the cool ones I had one time, there was an older gentleman. He had cancer, and his sons wanted to do a painting of him. He was always a big bull red fisherman out of like Galveston area. He liked to go down to the beaches down there and put the big poles out, get the tent and did little tents and umbrellas for all the family and little kids to play in. They would just catch big bull reds. Well, unfortunately, when we went to do the photo shoot, the red tide stuff was in really bad. So it was not really a good time to do it. But, the cool thing about being an artist, just like you too, you can Photoshop that stuff or paint that stuff out. And so we did the painting because we had to do it while we could because, the man's got cancer. We don't have enough time on this. Time isn't the essence. And so I get back to the studio and I do this painting of him wading down he's walking down the sandbar and he's got this big red on his pole and all his family's in the background and there's the beach and some seagulls, the sky, it's just, I was really happy with the way it turned out. And I called it the last bullfighter because he was kind of the last big red bullfighter in the family because the tradition hadn't really been passed on to the kids yet. And he passed away. And I remember his son sent me a picture from the funeral home and that painting was on an easel next to him. And I thought, okay, that's what it's all about. When you do this stuff is they'll never forget that day. I won't forget that day with him. I got to spend with him, but it's really cool because I got to bring a part of something to his family that they can always keep and remember about their dad or their grandpa. Yeah. Even the great grandpa. Because that's the cool thing about that stuff is it stays around.
That's going to be passed down.
Yeah. I mean, the bad thing is they'll all fight over that one painting. Because I've heard that happen too before, but it is what it is.
They'll just have to get a neutral spot and place it, or we got to pass it around at Christmas. You get to switch to the next person, or something.
It's a month. It's a quarterly thing.
Every quarter.
Every quarter, someone else gets it. Yeah. But we laugh about that kind of stuff. But like to them, it was like to this day they still talk about the memories of that. And I had a guy, a lot of people like that. I had a guy one time that. He wasn't going to get on the plane if he couldn't bring his painting on there, and somebody luckily gave up their extra seat so he could put the painting on his painting at a chair at Rodian to fly to Iowa. And you're like, wow, okay, you get some crazy stuff. Sometimes you'll call and you're like, And I think sometimes, and I don't know if you do this, but we forget like what we offer to people. Like
Yeah.
we get kind of a little stagnant and go, okay, well, we're just painting and I'm just going through the motions. But then something like that will come along and remind you what we do really is special, because we get to be a part of the nature. We get to experience it. We get to bring them something that they've experienced or got to have that always remind, or, they're always going to remember.
Yeah.
Just like you said, like you get to video someone shooting their first turkey, like a little, man, if you were with me and you got the video of my son shooting his first turkey, I would probably watch that video over again.
Yep. Over and over and over.
And you're going to do the same thing with your baby. It's going to be the same thing. You're going to treasure those first times like that. I still got a picture of my son's first little redfish, and that thing was probably only about that big.
Yeah.
But, it was a huge deal. And we got to go one time with him, and I was really glad we took the video. I don't know if you remember Captain Sally Black and Captain Aubrey Black out of Baffin Bay.
Yeah,
I believe, known. Yeah. They used to do TV shows and big fishermen, and I was doing a commission for them. And unfortunately, just as we were getting started, we got to go fish with Aubrey and Sally, and Aubrey just loved my little boy. Just gave him the head of the table at the lodge. It was crazy. They cooked his fish for him, everything. It went too far with that boy. And he put him on this big old redfish, and it was I think it was almost 28-inch redfish. And when you're about, I think he was about 6 or 7 at the time. It was a pretty good fight.
Yeah.
And in shallow water in Baffin Bay, and he brought him in, and Aubrey, they videoed it, and it was really cool. And then, unfortunately, Aubrey passed away that September, and that was in the summer. And it was a real unfortunate thing happened. But to this day, Austin and I will still pull out that video and watch it, thanks to Aubrey. Yeah. And he still remembers that. Right? He still talks about he calls him Mr. Captain Black about that video. So it's always, there's a lot of special things, with the people you get to meet in this business too, that I really love. It. A lot of them are like, you can tell, like they're like family, like from the start. Like you're like, I feel like I've always known this person. Mm-hmm. Like they're just amazing. And that's why me and Will Beatty, the guy I was saying about hunting Arkansas, he's been like a brother to me day one. And it was crazy how we met. We met at a DU banquet. I had a painting I did of a collage of all this different stuff, like different hunters, different stuff, different little kids calling. Like it was just a big collage painting with ducks and geese in it. And he walks up to me and he's like, there's a goose hunter in there with a dog. And the guy's like this, pointing like, up, shooting. And he's like, where did you get that reference for that guy and that dog? And I said, oh, my professor, the late Jerry Newman, he was a sporting artist too. And he's the one that taught me. And he goes, well, I used to hunt with Jerry Newman. I used to take him out to take pictures. And he goes, that's me and my dog in that painting. And I was like, oh, really? And he goes, yeah. And so we started talking. We hit it off. The next thing I know, I was staying in his lodge for the weekend, fishing with him. And he and I went caught redfish and flounder that like a couple days later. And we were just laughing because we were like, wow, it's crazy how like you were with my mentor and my teacher years ago when you were younger. And now you're with me teaching me. Yeah. Like taking me out. So we it's like, what a cool transition, of like going from one to the next.
That we're all connected. That's another thing. It's especially when you're like talking to hunters and fishermen that really like to do it. Like it doesn't take long to be at a place like that to meet somebody and be like, oh, so and so. Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I know them from like this period of their life, and them from this period of their life, and now we're interacting. It's cool to put friends with friends, and you just keep meeting cool people and getting to experience different things. And that's a big thing. Like a lot of people now are always, especially for newer hunters or people getting in, it's always like, well, how do I do this? How do I get into it? And even for people that have hunted and trying to get back in it or just trying to keep hunting, it's you got to meet people. You got to it, and it's not in a way of like you're using them to get access or anything like that, but you're generally meeting people that you enjoy spending time with, and it just so happens to be in the outdoors, hunting and fishing. And you can go on those trips and plan those things together and don't have to feel like it's this big challenge to do it by yourself. I mean, that's the best thing. Like one of the reasons like we started the page and started the podcast and everything on Instagram is to show the fact that like you could build your own hunting club. Like you yourself, it's you and your friends and your immediate people that you hang out with. There's this great world that we could post about on Instagram and everything, but like it's more of like finding the people that you can like talk about hunting with. Like, talk about spots, and then I
Stories. Yeah.
actually share the game cam pics and stuff like that with, and building that relationship. Because, man, hunting is hard. Fishing is hard. It is if you really want to do it, and when you're facing it by yourself, it's even a bigger challenge. So when you can have people that you can kind of lean on and experience these things with, it's a lot of fun.
Well, it's like when I went this a couple years ago. Danny New, who fishes out of Port Mansfield. He is an awesome guy too. No, I mean I know a lot of awesome people. I don't even know if I can list all of them today. I can't, but Danny's on the list too. Is another awesome
Same.
guy. Him and Joe Prado and Sparrow and all those guys and Ryan Diaz and I got to go with him and I had my 4 kids because the other 2 were just too small at the time to go. And he said, let's take all the kids fishing tomorrow. I was like, are you serious? On the boat? And he's like, yeah. And I go, how you going to do it? He goes, we're going to lure fish. And I go, seriously? Lures? I was like, you going to have an 8-year-old chunking lures and a 9 and 10-year-old chunking lures and 11 and 12-year-old chunking lures, like with us in the boat?
Yeah, somebody's getting hooked.
Do you think that's a good idea? And he's like, man, we'll do it. It'll be awesome. It'll work. Trust me, brother. I was like, all right, Danny. I was like, you've been guiding for a long time. If you say it's going to work, he goes, I ain't not putting no little dead bait or live bait. And them kids are going to learn to fish with lures. And I said, okay. I said, well, we're in Port Mansfield. Water's pretty and clear. You know, it's not too grassy. He knows what he's doing. Some LSU lures, some Norton lures, which I know Mr. Norton. He's another awesome guy. I said, cool, we'll do it. Man, we had so much fun with those kids. My daughter caught a 26-inch trout, which is a really nice trout for a first time. You know, everybody caught a keeper redfish. Even the little 8-year-old, she got to reel one in. And nobody got hooked, you know, or hurt.
That's a win.
And I thought, a bunch of bonuses. Man, you know, this was like dad proud moment of the year here. I got 4 of them on the boat, all taken. I had to have that picture of all 4 of them at the front of the boat holding their redfishes up, you know. And I told Danny, I said, man, that was really cool, man. That was really cool of you to do that. He goes, man, I love seeing young people get out and fish.
Yep.
Enjoy this stuff. And I was like, that's what we need more of, you know. I love when guys and women and stuff that hunt and fish want to take the kids along. Because they don't realize, as a school teacher, I realize it is super important to get those kids involved.
Yeah.
Captain Ernest Cisneros, I don't know if you Ernest and I had a really long talk one time about that. He had a teacher in his life that, you know, really inspired him to fish. And now he does it for a living. And it's like, wow, man, that is super cool. You know, that one person can make that kind of a difference in someone's life. Yeah. And he said, you know, I wouldn't know, you know, who knows where I'd be if I didn't have those kinds of good influences. And that's what I think about, like all the guys and the women I've spent time with. And I've really been blessed that I've been able to take the kids to a lot of places, to ranches and stuff. Like they get to reap the benefits of the artwork and stuff. And they get to go out there, and your son's going to do the same thing.
Yeah. He's definitely going to probably shoot a lot more deer than Dad ever did, and
hey, that's okay,
and everything else. Exactly, that's okay. But that's okay. Probably going to be the case.
I always tell him, like when I caught a 30 1/4 inch trout one day with Ernest down Laguna Madre, and I wasn't even trying to catch a big trout. We were actually trying to get my little one to catch more fish, and he was catching a lot of redfish, which means he was fishing slow and probably on the bottom a lot.
Yeah.
But I caught this big trout, and I told someone, I said, if I could go back and do it, I would let him catch that trout instead of me, because it would have been really cool to see him do that. And to this day, when they catch fish, you know, I get super, super stoked with them, watching them, man. I mean, you know, they're reeling it in, and they're all fired up, and they're trying to net it for each other and stuff. Yeah. And it's just like, it's really cool, because I know someday they're going to take my grandkids and do the same thing with them, you know.
Yep.
And I can just sit back in a chair and watch, maybe take a camera and take a picture. But
yeah,
you know, that's the cool thing, is like still connecting to the outdoors, just like the Native Americans and people did a long time ago. I think is just part of who we are as human beings. I think even those people who don't realize it, don't, if they went out and did it, would be connected, be hooked. You know, I mean, I've taken people who've never fished before, and they catch one good fish, and it's like, oh my gosh, I gotta go do this like every weekend now. This is amazing, you know?
Yeah.
and that's the way
it's ingrained in us. Like that's what we're supposed to be
really
doing.
Is.
You can, I think I watch Joe Rogan all the time, and he's talked about that. It's like, you can take anybody from the city. They could have never been anywhere, but if you take them fishing, especially fishing, and they catch a fish, they get just excited as the person that's been fishing their whole life, because it's in our brain like, hey, we got dinner, we got food, I did that, I accomplished something.
Yeah.
And I think of all the things that are going on in the world, it's I think a lot more people need that, and not necessarily
Oh
fishing,
yeah.
but like just get out and see things. Like I feel like a lot of people that are on the outside of the United States of America kind of need to come in and see things in the inside. Like
Yeah.
if you live your entire life in the United States and you never go see the Rocky Mountains, like that's a problem. Like those
Or like if
things
you've
are,
been in Texas and you've never seen, I don't know if you ever got to go there, but I really never realized how amazing Palo Duro Canyon is until I've been there.
yeah. I haven't been there yet, but
Oh my
it's on the
gosh.
list
When
to
you
go
do,
to.
you're gonna love it. I mean, that was a stronghold of the Comanches, but
Yep.
that place, like when you drive up on it, you're just like, wow, this is in Texas. Oh my gosh, my
Mhm.
home has the second largest canyon in the United States next to, the Grand Canyon. And
Yeah.
you're like, this place is amazing. Like, wow. I mean, I've been all the way down to South Texas, and I gotta tell people all the time, like, you need to go to Lower Laguna Madre and just step in the white sand and the clear water.
Mm-hmm.
Just go out there, watch a redfish tail across there, or watch a sheephead even scoot across there, because you'll see him from 20 yards away in that clear water, and you're gonna be like, man, this place is magical. And that's what
Exactly.
is the really cool thing about living in Texas. Like the only thing places I haven't got to go is really far west Texas, like way out west, like El Paso
Yeah.
West. I haven't got to go out there, or Big Bend. That's one of my goals, to go out there eventually. But like I've stayed in a ranch down in South Texas for 2.5 summers. I stayed down there doing murals. It was 5,000 acres. And we were in these canyons and stuff, and it was just, we'd ride around every day on the Ranger. We'd never see people for like 2 weeks at a time, just living there.
Yeah.
And no, I didn't even care.
Didn't even
Because there
care.
was so much wildlife. I mean, I have turkeys that would walk up on the back porch to me, and stand there and look at me at the edge of the steps. Like I was supposed to feed them, axis deer, there'd be hogs and everything. I mean, it was just wild. I mean, we loved it. You'd go ride around all night long just to see stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Never knew what you're going to see. Never know what you're going to experience. Saw foxes, saw porcupines, just things that I didn't think I would like really see out there. And then once again, like we talked about earlier, is you would get stories about the wildlife from the residents and stuff. And, if you go here, you'll see this and stuff. And you're like thinking, man, I didn't even know this stuff existed. Like there was a cave out there full of bats. Didn't even know they were out there. So there's so many like just cool things about our state that I wish people would just take more advantage of. And I have started seeing more and more people take their kids out to like the wildlife reserves and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. I love seeing people take their kids out to see the alligators, especially over here where I live around Bridge City. They go see the alligators at the parks and stuff. But, got to teach people to keep their distance from those things a little bit.
Yeah. And like we're saying, we see people that are like, man, as bad as they are and as many as there are out there, the Yellowstone videos of people like trying to pet buffalo or pet a elk or something. And I'm like, look, guys, that's not a toy. It's not the furry animal that Disney and everybody else has told you it is. Like, respect it. Come look at it, but respect it.
There's people who do that with bears too, and I'm like, oh, seriously? Haven't you seen enough of these like terrible videos, like when man meets wildlife kind of things, that not to do that by now?
Exactly.
I mean, I've got out at Cap Rock to take some pictures of some bison, but I still kept like 30, 40 yards away from them. Yeah, I could tell, like, and you can tell too, like if you're around animals enough, like certain postures are telling you, hey.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be real subtle postures, but they're still telling you, I'm done with you.
Yep.
You're getting too close, or you're pushing the issue here. You need to back up.
They'll give you a little head turn if they're like, they're perpendicular to you, a little head turn, you're good. But once they square up to you and they're facing you, it's probably time to, back on up and give them some space.
And that's the thing is like Native Americans tell me they always laugh because they're like, why do people always feel like to get out and try to touch these buffalo in Yellowstone? Like, what is their obsession with getting that close to one of them? And like, don't they know that, we used to have to hunt those things on horseback because you didn't just walk up and pet them and kill them with a knife and then drag them back home.
This is not a petting zoo.
I'm like, what is the deal? But so we see that up here with alligators. A lot of people want to mess with the alligators all the time, or see how close they can get because they've been watching too many TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
And they think, well, I can grab him by the tail and drag him around, and then they realize he's a lot more strong and powerful and twist a lot faster than you think he can. So I don't I don't try to push my issue with them. That's why I have a long range lens.
Yes,
So
sir.
you know how that goes.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Well, Calvin, man, I've had a blast talking with you on the podcast tonight. I'm really glad I got to have you on, and man, I'm really glad I got to meet you and talk to you and like
yeah.
get to know you a little better because I'm sure we're gonna be keep talking. I'll keep sharing all your stuff on Instagram when you post it and
Oh
everything.
yeah, I really
'Cause
appreciate that, man. We
I
thank you so much for that.
anytime, man, it's like I said, it's a big thing for us when we started the page is sharing other people's stuff. There's no man there's no competition. Like I did a podcast with the Dixie Doggers, and we talked a little bit about it. It's like, man, there's so many stories, there's so many different experiences you can have that need to be told. There's definitely not any room for well, I have a podcast, so I'm not gonna engage or do anything with your podcast because it's gonna hurt me. It's like, man,
Oh no.
exactly. And I don't live where you live. I don't have access to the stories that you can be able to tell.
Right.
Like there's no competition there. Like I'm sure just as many people want to listen to those stories from there is some of the stories that I can find over here. So I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I always love collaborating and helping each other and spreading the word. And it's all about, like you said, just getting people in the outdoors and experiencing some of the things that we get to. So any way that we can pass it on
Yep.
and
Especially
make
get
sure,
those kids out there. Let those kids see
yes, sir,
everything.
make
You know.
sure our kids get to experience some of the things that we got to. Because I mean,
Yes.
if there's nobody working for it, there's nobody standing up for it. It's just going to get pushed to the side like everything else. So,
Yeah.
man, I'm
That's
real
one thing I've
glad.
got to do. I've got to get better about sharing stuff. I used to share people's artwork, and then I had to kind of slow down because people would message me wanting to know if my painting was for sale. And I'm like, that's not mine. And it
Yeah,
would get kind
yeah,
of confusing because people would not read
yeah.
the
That it's
post, and it's
somebody
like,
else's.
you're killing me here. And so I would get people go, I didn't know you painted this guy. I was like, that's not mine.
Yeah,
It's like, so I was like, so I kind of slowed down on that a little bit because it was getting confusing. So I've gotten to where I try to share stuff as much, but sometimes I just forget because I'm always caught up doing stuff. Like I said, we work 2 jobs technically, and we have our 6 children, so we stay really
exactly.
quite busy. So, but I'm really honored that you had me on. It means a lot to me, and I can't tell you how. I've been looking forward to it since we talked about it. When you told me, I was like, oh, cool, yeah, I love doing
Awesome.
these things because I've always been told I talk too much, so that works really great.
Well,
That's
like I
like
said, I enjoyed it, man.
the
And any other time, if we can get back on, we can do another one. Like I
sure,
definitely, I don't. Any of my guests that I've had before, it's like, man, this isn't like a one and done thing. This is
yeah,
selfishly, this is my selfish thing. Is I get to meet people and talk to them like we just did, and I enjoy it. So even
yeah,
if nobody listened to the podcast, I would still do the podcast because
oh yeah.
I get to hear these awesome stories and get to meet cool people, and then get to build relationships and help each other out in any way we can.
Yeah, what we could do one time if you would like, I would love to do like a video podcast or something in person, like doing artwork out in the field, like
Dude,
actually setting up doing a painting while we talked. That would be
get
really fun.
let's
Yeah.
we're putting it on the calendar for sure.
Yeah, let's
'Cause
do
like
that. Like we can go
that
out to we gotta find a place to go, but we'll drive wherever we gotta go to meet up with you and set up and
yeah.
set up a little easel and some paint, and we can do a little bit of painting and talk about what it's like to put a painting together.
Oh, dude,
And
that
how you
sounds
take, because like when
awesome.
I do paintings, I do multiple references. I may have a turkey from one trip, scenery
Yeah.
from another trip, and then I got to put the two together. And so what goes into doing that and actually doing it.
Oh
And,
yeah, we're
you know,
definitely doing that.
I'm looking forward to
Big.
that. And I'd like to do a series. Another thing I do, and you might want to team up with me to do this someday, is getting some kids out and doing some art lessons with kids and doing a podcast. I think would be
Yes,
really
sir.
cool. I want more kids to get out in the wild and take pictures and do video. Like we could do it together. You can do video and photo,
Heck
and I
yeah.
can do painting. And my wife's an artist too. She can come along and do
Yeah.
painting. And your wife does video too. So
Yeah. Dude,
between
yes.
all of us, we'd have plenty enough stuff to teach the kids. But I think that would be really cool. And I have a bunch of different Native American replica pieces I could bring and show the kids, even a porcupine hairbrush, tail hairbrush. And you know, if you know this blanket right behind me, it's Cheyenne Designs. That's all
Dude.
beads, by the
Yeah.
way. It's a long bead strip that goes all the way down.
Holy
So that's pretty
yes.
cool.
Dude, definitely.
So
We
we'd have
can
a lot of
definitely
cool
do that.
stuff we could talk and play around with. We'd enjoy that. We're always looking for little cool, fun things to do, especially for our kids. We want our kids to grow up someday and go, man, my mom and dad got to do a lot of fun stuff. I want to live like they did.
Yeah. Exactly, man. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, and you sent me your number, but I'm definitely
Yeah,
going to be sending
yeah.
you
Text
mine
to me
so
so we can keep up with each other.
we can keep up
And
with each other and everything.
we look forward to seeing more and more years of things to come, and hopefully we can always stay in touch and keep things going. And congratulations on your baby boy. I know I can't tell you how awesome that's going to be through the years. You're going to have some great memories and hold him every day and tell him how much you love him. And
Yeah,
you wait, you're going to have some good times with that baby.
I appreciate it, man. Where can everybody find your page? I'll put it in the show notes, but if you want to say it,
you can go to my website, www.calvincarterart.net. There's Calvin Carter Sporting Art on Instagram, and there's Calvin Carter Western Art on Instagram. There's 2 pages actually on Instagram, and those 3 things are probably the biggest ones. The website, said www.calvincarterart.net is probably the biggest one. We have a lot of people go to that one, and it's pretty cool because we have it set up to where we get to see who all comes. I've had people from Sweden on there, and Ireland, and people from all overseas and stuff looking on the page. It's always kind of cool to see who's looking at the work. And some people come back over and over again looking at stuff. So that's really always a good feeling. We're just really excited to get to do this. Like I said, I can't tell you thank you enough. I've really enjoyed talking with you. It's a lot of fun. I think you and I probably would sit around and talk way too much out in the field. Would never shoot anything. We would spend too much time telling stories and sharing the love for what we get to do. So it would be a lot of fun, to spend time together. So we look forward to it.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do it for sure. Well,
yes,
Calvin,
sir.
Thanks for coming on the podcast, and everybody, thanks for listening. Be sure and
thank you
check
so
out
much.
all Calvin's pages. We'll catch y'all next week.
Y'all have a blessed night. Yes, sir.